The United States recently authorized an operation against the sitting president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro. This wasn't just a sanctions announcement, it was the culmination of months of extreme pressure, economic warfare, and even a multi-million-dollar bounty placed directly on his head. After the final go-ahead from the White House, we saw serious, overt action, reports of military infiltration, coordinated attacks on the power grid, and even alleged bombings near the Venezuelan capital. The big question is, why did this happen? Why is the U.S. so intensely focused on removing President Maduro from power? To really grasp this geopolitical mess, we have to start with the man himself, Nicolás Maduro. Who exactly is he? Maduro has been the president of Venezuela for a significant stretch of time, taking over after his predecessor died. He is currently serving what many consider an illegitimate third term, largely because he managed to rewrite the constitution to keep himself in power. During his tenure, he attempted to enact massive social change and implement generous aid programs aimed at supporting the nation's poor. But under his administration, the Venezuelan economy has utterly collapsed. Hyperinflation soared to insane levels, largely due to a disastrous over-reliance on oil revenue and poor domestic policies. Money became nearly worthless. To buy something simple like a chicken, you needed millions of local currency units. Venezuelan currency was literally worth less than the paper it was printed on, often being repurposed for handicrafts instead of spending. As conditions worsened, massive popular protests erupted, which were brutally met with violence by state security forces and allied military groups, leading to the deaths of hundreds of civilians. Okay, that's Maduro. But let's go back to the original question: why does the U.S. want him gone so desperately? The whole saga might trace its origins back to one simple commodity: oil. Years ago, Venezuela's economy was incredibly prosperous thanks to its massive oil reserves. They were even one of the largest oil suppliers to the U.S. Over time, however, American companies began to heavily dominate Venezuela's oil industry. Then a new leader rose to power, Hugo Chavez. His mission was clear: nationalize Venezuela's vast wealth and ensure it primarily benefited the nation itself. Oil companies were taken over by the state, and domestic policies favoring local markets were implemented. Relations between the two countries immediately soured, especially as Venezuela grew closer to nations considered rivals of the U.S. When Chavez died from heart disease, his longtime right-hand man, Nicolás Maduro, inherited the presidency and simply continued those anti-U.S., nationalistic policies. So we understand the historical root of the antagonism between the two nations. But this story isn't complete without introducing the other major character in this drama, Donald Trump. From the moment he took office, Trump consistently escalated tensions with Venezuela. This included issuing crippling sanctions that pushed the already fragile Venezuelan economy into free fall. He openly supported Maduro's opposition leaders and even leveled public claims that Maduro was backing international drug cartels and terrorist gangs. This accusation became the primary public justification for the intense push to remove or arrest Maduro. Although Trump repeatedly framed his actions as being about stopping terrorism and seeking justice, many geopolitical experts believe this whole confrontation was, fundamentally, about wealth and power, specifically, control over oil and regional influence. What's truly wild is that some analysts even argued that the entire military campaign wasn't genuinely beneficial to long-term American interests, suggesting it might have been driven purely by the political ambitions of the administration at the time. At the time these events unfolded, Maduro and several of his supporters were allegedly being prosecuted in the U.S. The irony is stark: a Venezuelan citizen, who was forcibly removed from his country against his will, was being tried under American law. It highlights a truly bizarre facet of American foreign policy. Furthermore, the administration suggested that should Maduro be successfully removed, the U.S. would oversee a transitional government in Venezuela, a strategy previously employed in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, countries the U.S. had also aggressively intervened in. Experts warned that this kind of intervention would only result in worse military conflict and further economic chaos. It seems the new decade opened with a fresh wave of international chaos. What makes this so troubling is the existence of international laws designed specifically to prevent one nation from interfering with the sovereignty of another. Yet, these laws are frequently ignored by powerful countries with little consequence. If this precedent is allowed to stand, it won't just be the citizens of Venezuela who suffer, but ordinary people across the globe. We are currently witnessing Venezuela's turn in the spotlight, but who can be sure which nation will be targeted by aggressive foreign intervention next?